be like those. It's 1:30. I'd like to call the meeting of the Traffic and Transportation Commission for October 17, 2022 to order. We'll do a roll call. Commissioner Barnell.
Here.
Commissioner Littlefield.
Here.
Commissioner Russell.
Here.
Commissioner Hale.
Here, sir.
Commissioner Schuline. Commissioner Wynn.
Here.
Commissioner George.
Here.
Commissioner Cornett.
Here.
Next item is approval of the minutes of the September 19, 2022 meeting. Can I have a motion on this?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Hale. Do we have a second?
Go ahead. Shuline's got it.
Who? You want the second? We have a second by Commissioner Schuline. Do we have any discussion about the meeting minutes? Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes from Commissioner Hale, seconded by Commissioner Schuline. And we're waiting on, here it is. Votes, please. Okay, item has approved with 8 in favor and 1 abstained. We go on now to item 3, reports from Traffic Management Division in the Counselor's Office. Do you have anything, sir?
Our yield report is included. We have 207 LPI intersections as of today. And we have submitted to you for your review the ASAP program. It's a draft. Take it, read it, enjoy it. Any suggestions, please return them to us by November 5th, and we will put a final resolution together for you to vote on and send to City Council.
No reports from the Municipal Counselor's Office.
Thank you very much. We go on now to item 4, the consent docket. Is anybody here to speak against the item on the consent docket, which is to remove some no parking anytime restrictions? Okay, staff, any input on it?
Staff's comments are before you.
Okay, can we have a motion concerning the consent docket?
Move approval.
A move to approve from Commissioner George. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second came from
Russell.
There you are, it's Russell. Any talk on the consent docket? Okay, we have a motion to approve the consent docket by Commissioner George, seconded by Commissioner Russell. Can I have your votes, please? Hale? Okay, item has passed with all 9 in favor. We go on now to item 5, items for individual consideration, the election of officers. Do we have a motion for some nominees?
I'll make a motion for Mr. Kula for chair and Mr. Hale, Commissioner Hale for vice chair.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Russell for Kula to be chair and Hale to be vice chair. Do we have a second to that? Second. We have a second by Commissioner Schuline. Any discussion? Anybody else wants to be nominated? It's required I ask. It's required I ask twice. All right, we have a motion to approve item 5A, which is by Russell, seconded by Schuline for Kula and Hale. So we need a vote. And there's your vote.
Yes.
Sorry?
On here is, do I need to re-sign
Oh, it was by Russell. Yeah. No, sorry. Got it? No. Russell and Schuline. There it is. Okay, so item is approved, all 9 in favor. Okay, we go on now to 5B, Ron Morris, change the speed limit on Southwest 134th Street, which is also State Highway 37, between Interstate 44, I-44, and Southwestern Avenue from 50 miles per hour to 40 miles per hour. And do we have somebody here to speak on that? Is Mr. Morris here? No? Okay, do we have anybody to speak on this item? Okay, staff?
Thank you. State Highway 37, Southwest 134th Street. We conducted speed studies along this roadway. The 50% percentile speed was 50 miles an hour, and the 85th was 54. MUTCD suggests that you post the speed limit within 5 miles an hour of the 85th percentile, so we're currently there. Got pretty good compliance overall. The section from Western to Santa Fe is posted at 40, and the 85th percentile is 49, with the 50th percentile at 45. So people are comfortable driving the speed that it is out there. Crash history does not bear out anything. And if it is voted to change the speed limit, then we will have to take this item to Oklahoma Department of Transportation, to their traffic board, for them to decide. So it's at your discretion.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have a motion concerning item 5B?
Motion to deny.
Motion to deny from Commissioner Hale. Do we have a second?
Second from Varnell.
Varnell, yep, second by Commissioner Varnell. Do we have any talk about item 5B?
You mentioned that collision data isn't pertinent, but there were 74 collisions on this stretch in a year span. And so I'm just, 74 on one and then 44 on another. And to me, that's what stood out as like, that's really extreme, and compared to anything else we've seen come through here. And so, like, I guess why doesn't that have any bearing on our decision?
It's a 2.5-mile stretch. It's got an interchange with the interstate, and they're signalized intersections, and high-volume signalized intersections tend to create traffic collisions, and it just adds up.
Yeah, but there are several that were between the intersections. I mean, there are several that didn't happen directly at an intersection. Like, they're a few pages down. I guess page 8 has multiple that happened in the middle of the road. And so I just kind of, I mean, there's a school zone there. There's a lot of stuff that seems to be happening that's way beyond just intersection collisions. And these are just the ones that are reported. Obviously, there are a lot more that we have seen that don't make it into DPS's report. So that's my biggest concern, is that we're dealing with a lot. Also, we have the Bella Light method that says that it should be 43.
Bella Light is also not intended to be used in built-up areas.
Well, I guess then why was it provided if that is?
No, in her report, she says that it's not intended for urbanized areas.
But that's exactly what it's intended for, is urbanized areas, because it is your built environment that controls the speed limit, or the speed that people are comfortable going. And so to me, we've always had it backwards, and we depend on how fast people are going to determine what the speed limit should be versus how fast do we want people to go on the stretch of road, and then design the street that way. And so if we're saying both things, that our streets are designed to make people speed, and also people are speeding on the street because it's designed that way, and we're not willing to do anything about it, we're not willing to change the street nor change the speed limit, then how do we prevent people from speeding, and how do we prevent incidents from occurring on the stretch of road if we're not willing to do literally anything about it?
Well, I would say, first of all, that stretch seems pretty rural-ish. When you look at Google Maps and all that, you can see that it's not really built up. So it is a little bit rural-ish. compared to as you get more towards Western and all that. And so as that builds up even more and more,
It has
it'll slow itself down.
23,000.
Now, traffic-wise, there's a lot of,
traffic,
there's a lot of
yeah.
traffic, but when you look at the road, it doesn't really look like an urban or a city road to me. So it gives the feel that 50 might be okay, the feel. Again, it's the, what does it look like it should be, and that's what people usually drive. And people are driving as this, it's
As
a
a fif-
50 mile an hour.
Sure.
So, you know, the only thing we could ask for is what caused those accidents? Was it people trying to cut in front?
And we don't have any of that data.
Yeah, that would
provided.
be the only thing I would say to the accident count is what's causing the accidents compared to, is it the speed, cutting across,
Sure.
it's people just stopping because there was no, is there a center turn lane all the way down, or is it just a 4-lane road?
It's just a 4-lane road.
So, you know, when somebody wants to turn left, they stop, and
Sure.
then they get
Yeah.
rear-ended.
I just think I have a lot of concerns about not putting any kind of, I mean, like, there's something obviously wrong with this street in that there are so many collisions. I mean, this is way higher. This is
you're right.
an outlier compared to every other thing that comes before us. And so,
Well, I think if we were to go to 40, people won't do 40.
sure.
So then he'll be out there just writing tickets.
So what are we willing to do as a city to make that better? Because, I mean, it's like there's,
To make it safer.
To make it safer
to
for
cut down
people.
the accidents.
Yes.
Oh, that's a good question.
yeah, what are we willing, if we're not willing to do a speed limit change to actually impact the people who have like a conscience about driving the speed limit, but also we're not willing to actually put any kind of infrastructure in to make it safer, then what are we, like, is there anything we're gonna do?
Part of the problem with this stretch of road, if you look, is the East Lake Elementary School. So in the mornings and the afternoons, you've got one lane that is completely blocked with parents trying to get in and out. And that's part of the problem that is not explained in just the map itself. But I'm familiar with the stretch of road, and that's one of the big problems. The 19 crashes that you see is within that vicinity of the elementary school, because that northbound outside lane is completely blocked in the mornings and the afternoons, which causes a horrible problem if you are going westbound on that road.
Okay,
And when you talk about the infrastructure, when this was developed with the school, an inset would have been advantageous instead of just having it on a state highway
sure.
to pick up the kids. But that's part of the problem. But I don't see where a change in speed limit is going to alleviate that problem.
Sure, but I
Well-
think, I
well,
mean, that's our option, right?
Yeah, let me ask, is it a school zone?
Yes,
So there are times posted where it's 25?
that is correct. But it still blocks one
Sure, and
complete
everything
lane.
goes down to one lane.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, on this one, do we know the difference between the rate on this? I mean, because obviously the number seems high, 74 collisions, but as far as the rate comparative to other sections of 2.5 mile areas, is this a high rate or is this kind of a average rate?
We didn't calculate the rate on this one, but I know there are other signalized intersections in the area that have higher crashes.
Well, but as she mentioned, coming in front of us, we don't usually see that big of a number. Usually it's
Or
like
near it.
2 or 3
Yeah,
within the last 2 years. So when somebody comes up and says, hey, we've had 74, 73 accidents in this stretch in a year,
Right.
that's what she's kind of saying is, what is a solution to that problem? And we don't know, and maybe staff can go out there and look at it, maybe you can send some people out there and look, and then let us know if there's something that can be done to help it. I would defer to the staff as the experts, and to you, Captain, to go out there and just make sure that there's nothing that's wrong. out there. Is that okay, Barry?
That's great. We might look at Southwest 104th. A number of years ago, we had a request between I-44 and South Pennsylvania to change that speed limit from 45 to 40. We approved that. I think if a speed study were done today, you were going to find that the 85th percentile is still going to be around 45 because the road and the lack of cross traffic, the road feels 45. And that's, the longer I'm on this
Yeah.
commission, the more I truly believe that no matter what signage we put up, people are going to drive the way the road feels.
I agree, and I feel like we're kind of absolving the traffic department from like any wrongdoing and creating streets that feel really fast. And if there is absolutely no recourse for making our streets safer, including even if it's an artificial, like posting a speed limit, and it's not artificial. I mean, it does affect speeds for a section of people. It's not everybody, and there are definitely going to be a lot of people who still speed, but it does lower the overall traffic rate. So if we're not even willing to do that and we're just okay with it being an unsafe street, I think that's where I have a really big problem saying like, okay, no, traffic department's not going to make the street feel slower, and we're not willing to do anything to say it should be slower, but it continues to have a really high account of crashes. Like, I don't know. I don't feel like that is the solution.
Well, we could ask the staff to go ahead and go out there and look and see, and if there's something that can be done in the area where the accidents are. Captain?
Yeah, I don't mind going. I don't know what exactly I'm going to look at just from my experience to tell you what's unsafe necessarily. I worked Santa Fe, which that street's in Santa Fe for a long time. It's definitely building up. Like if you look at the pictures from I-44 to Portland, there's not much going on. You kind of feel like you're just able to go 50 pretty safely. As you get closer to Western and beyond, I mean, there's definitely a bunch of housing additions. Obviously, I don't know what attributed to every accident. I've worked several on the road. I mean, the school, as he pointed out, it is, man, if you don't drive on that road, but in the morning and the afternoon, there's nowhere for those cars to go. So as they pull into the school, they're just waiting, and they eventually just back up down 134th. So, I mean, that does cause a problem. Speed-wise, for sure, enforcement, a lot of enforcement takes place between Western and Santa Fe because that speed limit drops down to 40. And I can tell you from working down there, that's where I would sit because very few people went 40 miles an hour. I mean, you're usually getting people 55 because they probably think they're in the section of the road that does feel wide. So, I mean, I could say I could go look, but I don't know that I'm going to come up with ideas of how to make it safer. I just don't think that's necessarily my expertise. But I will say it is growing. They've got a Walmart that's gone in down there and some other restaurants. So it's definitely going to start drawing more and more traffic. So.
Okay. Any other talk on item 5B?
I'd just say that 73 crashes over a year on that highway sounds like a lot because we're used to, well, this intersection, this four-way stop has 2 or something, but I think Oklahoma City has over 20,000 crashes a year, so 20,000 a year, and this is 73. So, and I didn't see how many were fatal or not, but 20,000 are happening in Oklahoma City every year. So, I don't know. I'm definitely not in favor of reducing the speed at this point in time until it's more developed in maybe a few years.
Okay, any other talk on item 5B? Okay, we have a motion to disapprove from Commissioner Hale and seconded by Commissioner Varnell. Votes, please.
Aye.
The item has passed. We have 7 in favor, 1 no, and 1 abstain. Okay? All right, so we go on now to item 5C. Jesse Rush, Assistant Director Operations, embarked to make the existing passenger loading zone on the north side of Northwest 4th Street from North Hudson Avenue to approximately 160 feet west of the west curb line of North Hudson Avenue, effective on a full-time basis, and 2, remove metered parking on the south side of Northwest 5th Street from North Hudson Avenue to approximately 240 feet west of the west curb line of North Hudson Avenue in favor of a full-time passenger loading zone. Sir, can I have your name, address? You got 5 minutes.
Yep, Jesse Rush, address is 2000 South May, 73108, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Fantastic description. It was almost like I wrote it myself. Appreciate that description. Yeah, so we are in the process of doing a system-wide study for our bus transit system. And part of that, with the additional funds from MAPS 4, we're looking to bring additional buses online. And then we're also bringing the Northwest Bus Rapid Transit, the rapid system, to Oklahoma City. So what does that mean, right? So what does that mean for our transit center? It means we're going to have a lot more buses at the transit center and a lot more connections for our customers and residents of Oklahoma City to be able to get where they need to go, right? So with the addition of the BRT, we're essentially taking 2 locations that are currently at the transit center and making those dedicated for the bus rapid transit system, for those buses to come and do what they do, bringing people to Oklahoma City. So what does that mean? That means that we're taking away those 2 stations, dedicating those to the BRT, and now we need to find places for buses to go, right? So that's what we're asking for here. So with the full-time dedication on 4th Street, that allows us to be able to use that for buses to pull up there and berth in a light. That's transit terms. Sounds terrible, I know. But to berth in a light, passengers, and then the same thing on Northwest 5th Street that allows us to do the same thing there. So appreciate any comments or questions from the commission.
All right, thank you very much. Anybody else wanted to speak on item 5C? Okay, staff?
Staff's comments are before you. Action is at the discretion of the commission.
Okay, do we have a motion concerning item 5C?
Mr. Chairman, I move the application be approved.
Okay, motion to approve by Commissioner Schuline. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Littlefield. Do we have any talk on item 5C?
I have a quick question. In the passenger pickup lanes, is there a time restriction on how long cars can be in that during that time?
So, excuse me, yeah, so right now on Northwest 5th Street, those are dedicated for parking, right? So we'll be removing that parking, and that'll be dedicated for bus passenger drop-off.
That's bus
Bus
passenger.
passenger,
Okay.
yep.
Not what I was thinking, so thank you.
On 4th Street, we have a protected bike lane. Is that going to be
Not at all. No,
a concern?
absolutely
Okay.
not, yep.
Okay. Promise to protect them. Okay.
Scouts on it, however you do it, yeah. Yeah, so can I just add to that just a little bit? So we do already park buses on 4th Street,
Okay.
and we've seen no impact on the bus lane.
Okay.
Okay, any other talk on item 5C? We have a motion to approve 5C from Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner Littlefield. Time for your votes.
Thank you.
Item has
Have a good day.
passed with all 9 in favor. Okay, we go on now to item 5D, Timothy Johnson, P.E., President, Johnson & Associates, Inc., traffic signal at North Rhode Island Avenue and Northeast 23rd Street. Who wants to come first?
Thank you, Tim Johnson, with Johnson Associates here on behalf of the applicant. With me today is Monique Short, who's with the applicant. Caleb Morgan, you see his face all the time. And then Mark Zitzow of my office is going to talk a little bit. So first, thank you to the staff for allowing us to get this presentation in kind of at the last minute. But before we start on that, I just wanted to show that this project is not unlike several other projects the city's done that we've been involved with. A lot of similar applications, but a lot of those are mid-block for pedestrian access and pedestrian safety. In this case, we happen to have an intersection that just is not signalized. And and we'll go through these, but the Tower Theater is one, midway on Sheridan, across from the Devon Building to the Botanical Gardens is another example. But in this case, we actually have a four-way intersection that will act as a full signalized intersection for both traffic and pedestrians, even though from a traffic standpoint, it doesn't warrant it. But we believe that from a pedestrian standpoint, pedestrian safety, that it is warranted. The developer has made a great amount of investment on the south side of 23rd Street, on either side of Rhode Island, that has changed the community. And with this investment into the Hamlin Hotel, a boutique hotel on the northwest corner, will add to that the need to have safe pedestrian access on both sides of 23rd Street. If you've been to the site on the south side has the parking, has front street parking on 23rd, has parking in the rear of both retail buildings. They brought a medical use to that corner, the southwest corner, that brings a lot of traffic, not by vehicle, but by buses and by walking. And so in this case, our nighttime traffic, which you all have already approved, the valet drop-off and the ADA accessible on Rhode Island, the valet will be using these empty lots on the south side of the street to park for the hotel users. So with that, I wanted to introduce the project, and then I'm going to let Caleb talk about some details, and then Mark will wrap up.
So Mark's going to kind of go through the presentation in more detail, but we appreciate staff reviewing this and going through it. And as they'll state later, this didn't meet any warrants according to the MUTCD. We looked at pedestrians and traffic. It didn't meet any of those. Part of that is that analysis just included the hotel itself and the existing traffic on the roadway. So there's a lot of factors that can be taken into account in the future, future development planning, what will happen along 23rd. And so that's kind of what Mark's going to talk about, all that stuff. So Mark.
Good afternoon, Mark Zitzow with Johnson & Associates. Address is 1 East Sheridan Avenue. So before you is the map that was included in your staff report. In yellow is the signal that we are requesting. I think when we think about this type of analysis and compare it to this type of project, they don't always mesh well. When you talk about urban areas, I think a different review and approach should be taken. So if you go to the next slide. So Tim kind of foreshadowed here what's happening at this section. This area of Northeast 23rd is really becoming a nexus and a heart of the community. There's a significant number of original urban buildings on this street. Now, 23rd Street is a 4-lane corridor, and I think just being a 4-lane corridor means it's not going to be as pedestrian friendly. This area has not seen a significant amount of investment. There's investment coming, and I know staff is here and could answer questions about what that looks like through future MAPS funding. But this hotel, as you can see, is a significant investment, both in physical development, but also in the built environment. There's going to be new sidewalks. Currently, it's planned as around a 77-unit hotel room, or hotel rooms. In addition, there's an event space and there's retail on the ground floor. Tim mentioned that parking is shared. It's shared between the south side of the street. There's also likely to be cross-access parking agreements throughout 23rd Street. In these urban corridors, you tend to see that. Shared parking is necessary because there's not the amount of room to provide what some may consider a sufficient amount of parking for every single use in every single building. That's not how this development has occurred. That's not how 23rd Street on either side of 235 was built out. This is the collisions that are from the staff report. One of the planners on our team, Kelly Driscoll, used to be the city planner who assisted in the corridor study for this 10 plus years ago. And in that, they note that there's a history of pedestrian collisions on the street. So, your staff report talks about some of the more recent collisions at this intersection alone. You can see from the ACOG Regional Crash Safety Report, there's a significant issue on 23rd Street. We hope that some of this will be addressed. We think this signal is key to making sure that pedestrians and visitors crossing this area, visiting East Point, Kindred Spirits, the gyms, and the event center and hotel on the north side will be safe in that movement back and forth. And so this is what Justin Henry can speak to if needed. There is future improvements that we hope will make it safer. But again, it's a 4-lane arterial road that needs some level of intervention to make sure that the crossing between the north and the south side of the street is safe. So what I wanted to walk through is just commercial districts. I think generally what we see is the safest and in some ways the most successful districts that we have in the city are 2-lane. So we've got others that we're going to show. I think this is an apples to apples comparison of what's happening on the west side of 235 versus our development on the east side. You have what is a major draw in Tower Theater and parking on the south side. If you go to the next one, Paseo, I think most people have been to Paseo. It's very safe. It's narrow streets. It's 2 lanes throughout with on-street parking. In a perfect world, I think if a project comes down Northeast 23rd, it would go to 2 lanes. Based on how the project seems to be going on the west side of 235, we're likely not to see a reduction in lanes. So in our opinion, we need to do everything possible to make it as safe as possible for visitors and residents. The Asian district, with BRT coming along, it's going to have that BRT lane. But again, this is not what I think a lot of people would consider a very walkable district. I think the walkability from the neighborhoods to the district is good, but crossing these streets and these intersections, if you haven't done it, can be very challenging. Stockyards, you have a light at a key intersection. That's kind of their hub for that district, but also 4 lanes there is challenging for that district. Go to the next one. So if you go to Capitol Hill, they have 2 lanes with on-street parking. I think many consider this a very safe and walkable urban district. And so in summary, I think when we review these, there is a component that is the bit of the softer side of the review and the analysis, and that if you look at it, it doesn't feel safe. If you're walking around and you're dodging cars that are going 45, 50 miles an hour on off-peak times, it is not safe. So, understanding that the analysis that's done, it's an analysis that we would view mainly from a vehicular standpoint. It doesn't always take into account, I think, the reality of what people are seeing and what the business owners are seeing. So for us, we're happy to answer any questions, but we think that the signal is imperative to ensuring that nobody in this area is injured when these developments all open up and come online. And we believe that these are really just some of the first ones we're going to see on Northeast 23rd. And we think that this intersection in particular is going to really become that heart and that kind of booming nexus of what this area can be. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. Do we have anybody else that wants to speak on item 5D? Yeah, please. Let me have your name, address, and you'll have up to 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you. I'm Anthony Carfang. I live at 2324 Northwest 26th Street in Ward 2. I get around by bicycle as my main form of transportation. You might have seen it outside parked after I drop my daughter off at daycare. I go to Spiked Coffee monthly since it opened. There's a fantastic meetup with a large group of people from around the city. And importantly, I'm here to talk about context around the data that is in the traffic report. So in addition to me going monthly, there is a meetup group that weekly on Friday hosts a Coffee with Legislators session with different legislators every week. So since Spiked has opened in September of 2021, it has indeed, as they've talked about, become a hub for the community. Now, Mr. Zitzow had a slide about crash history at this particular intersection, notably 2 in the DPS records for the year 2021. Now, I work at a company called Data Driven Streets, and we have a data mining method to collect crash data from various sources that don't always make it into a police report. So whenever you hear, for instance, traffic reports on the radio that there's a crash here, or there's a car stalled here, or so forth and so on, that is provided by a service called SIG Alert. There are other methods like user-reported incidents on Waze, and not every single fender bender or stalled car requires a police report, so DPS data is inherently going to fall short. Our methodology of data mining, especially from SIG Alert, has found that in 2022 alone, up through the month of August, there were 3 at this specific intersection. If you extrapolate that out to the end of the year, you'll hit the 5 that the MUTCD requires. More so from a humanistic standpoint, in addition to the ability for neighbors on the north side of this intersection to access the coffee with legislators on the south side to participate in democracy, pedestrians deserve a safe way to get there across a 4-lane arterial. Even more so, you might recall that Northeast OKC has historically been a food desert. Thankfully, the development from various organizations on that side and pushed by Councilwoman Nice have really helped to get Homeland established on Lincoln and 36th, but the market at East Point is also a heavy portion of that. And if you ever get the chance to go, I really recommend their prepared salads and sandwiches. They're delicious. So that, again, is on the south side of the intersection. There is neighborhoods on the north side. There is a bus stop at that intersection. And I particularly live near the Walmart on near Shepherd Mall. There was a woman in, I believe it was October of 2021, who was hit and killed while crossing 23rd Street after grocery shopping to get to her bus. So I am perfectly fine with a signal at this intersection that is almost always green for Northeast 23rd traffic, but a signal will provide a safe mechanism for pedestrians to get to the south side of the street, get their food, get back home, and do what they need to do without being worried about becoming another crash statistic. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Anybody else want to speak on item 5D? Okay, staff?
Staff's comments are before you. The applicant is paying for this signal, and unfortunately, we would not be able to include a left turn lane. We typically include left turn lanes for signal request, but at this location, due to the restricted right-of-way and all the development along there, we will not be able to put in a left turn lane, which is one of the causes of crashes that are out there currently, that people are stopping to make that left turn and getting hit. So,
Could you go over what type of road 23rd Street is, again, the certain category it's in?
Northeast 23rd is a major arterial. Rhode Island is a neighborhood or local road. Rhode Island only goes up to 26th Street to the north and down to 16th to the south. So it's a very short stretch of road at this location.
And would you say that the 14,000 vehicle, I thought when we were talking about the speed limits, it was a higher number of vehicle traffic on 23rd. Is that a good number, you think, the 14,000?
That's a good number. Caleb provided us that number in their study, so they'd just gone out and counted it.
Well, it's just a talk about, it's a major road, and we're putting in another stop to slow, when we went to 25 miles an hour, that was a big talk.
The 25 miles an hour is west of 235.
Right.
So this is east, and it's 35 through here.
30.
30? Yeah, I walked out there and looked at it, and I don't remember off the top of my head. That's what it was.
Yes, sir.
For the comments about the left turn lane, like you mentioned, it's around 14,000. The section of the roadway currently is sufficient to handle that, and like the warrants show, the vehicle traffic doesn't warrant a signal. It's not about that. It's mostly about the pedestrians. So there's not a lot of left turns that happen there anyway, so there's not a lot of big concern for that. And the traffic is pretty low, especially compared to the west side, so that the 4-lane section that's there now is actually more than adequate.
Okay, very good. All right, do we have a motion concerning item 5D?
I'd like to move approval.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. Good.
I'll second, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so you want to make the motion to approve?
Yep.
You'll second? Okay, we have a motion to approve from Commissioner Cornett and seconded by Commissioner Wynn. Any discussion?
All I like to say is that everybody here did a phenomenal job of presenting and giving us more data than we have at our disposal, but also making a point for the fact that this is a pedestrian request. That's not necessarily a lot of times what we get to handle or even get presented. So I really appreciate how you all discussed that. Thank you for coming.
All right, any other discussion on item 5D?
I'd just want to double check, and I want to thank the developer for offering to pay for the light. Is that correct? It's in your letter, and then I think it was just mentioned.
Yeah, so the developer is working with the Alliance with some funding mechanisms, but it won't be the city of Oklahoma City. per
Okay,
se.
perfect. Thank you for that.
Okay, any other discussion on 5D? Okay, we have a motion to approve by Commissioner Cornett, seconded by Commissioner Wynn. Votes, please. Item has passed. Would all in favor? All right, thank you. We come now to item 5E and 5F. Both of the people that have put in those requests asked for them to be moved to November. So if I can have a motion concerning moving item 5E and 5F to the November meeting.
Motion to move.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Hale. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner George. Any discussion on it? Okay, we have a motion to move item 5E and 5F to the November meeting from Commissioner Hale, and seconded by Commissioner George. Your votes, please. All right, item has been moved. We go on now to item 6, comments from citizens. Anybody want to talk to us? Oh, what else do you say? All right, nothing there. Time to go to reports from traffic commissioners, et cetera. We'll go to Commissioner Varnell.
None for me, thanks.
We'll go to Commissioner Littlefield. Oh, what? Are you sure that's all you need?
Stations that Councilman Cooper and I are working right now in Ward 2. One of them, and it's really interesting, I think it's called Mayfair West neighborhood, and it's regarding North Independence between Northwest 50th Street and Interstate 44. This, very oddly, and Commissioner Schuline may recall, was the stretch of road that we looked at when the ASAP program was in its discussion in infancy, and there was a traffic count study done at the time. Since that period, the neighborhood has gotten very well organized, and Better Streets is getting ready to resurface that. And we met with the neighborhood, and this might be a very, very good opportunity to exercise some traffic calming measures if they become available, which I feel very confident that they will. But that's a great case, and it's really interesting to be revisiting that. Another one that we're looking at is a citizens and neighborhoods concerns on North Portland between Northwest 63rd and the Lake Road. There's a sense and a feeling that that's becoming more and more used, more congested, speeding traffic, et cetera, especially at the intersection of Portland and the Lake Road. So we're looking at that. And a third one that we're looking at that's interesting is there's a proposal for a new development of an application that's been filed with the Planning Commission for a bank building at about 2600 Northwest Expressway, which puts it on the east side of that office depot before you get to where the new Oak development is approximately. And it's interesting because Northwest 52nd Street, kind of up on the hill, those homes all face north. So these homes would be facing this bank tower, which is just kind of interesting. But there's 3 or 4 little streets that all sort of connect right there in front of those folks on Northwest 52nd. So we're getting ready to propose a traffic count on those few little streets to get a count of what the condition is now, just so that when the development does happen, if it does happen, how that development may impact traffic on those streets, and we can address that at a future date if it's necessary. But those are the 3 things that are going on in Ward 2 that I find significant because it could apply to some traffic calming measures. Congratulations to the 2 guys that we don't know what we do without. And I'm ever so proud of staff and Eric Wenger listening to the voices of our traffic commissioners at last month's meeting and having this draft. Really, really, I encourage you all to look at that very closely and consider any ideas that you think could be added to it or taken away from it, hopefully added to it. 20 minutes are up. Thank you.
We'll come back to Ward 3 in a second. We'll go to Commissioner Hale. To Commissioner Schuline.
Thanks to the staff for the ASAP draft report. I'm really excited about that. Thank you so much.
Go to Commissioner Wynn.
Nothing to report.
Commissioner George. Commissioner Cornett.
First, I wanted to say thank you to Commissioner Russell here for his service. We're going to address that in a minute, but thank you. I just wanted to tell you thank you. It's been fun being your seatmate. I did want to ask about the ASAP program, just a few clarifying questions as far as like, are we at this juncture, are we able to introduce new features, or I guess kind of is this for us just to say like, oh, I'd tweak the language here, or because there are several features that I wish were added that aren't in the plan at this time, and will there be the potential for us to add those in the future, or is now the time to get those in?
Well, I think what we're really looking at right now is the establishment of the program.
Okay.
Here's the words of the program.
Yep.
And there's a couple tools in the box that can be used, so we can look at them because they're there.
Yes.
But the goal of the ASAP program, past being approved and operational, is as new things come, they would be analyzed, and that would be Appendix 5.
Great.
And then you want a different thing, and it'd be Appendix 6. And it would have it all laid out, and it would just be added to it once it's approved by the approval people.
Okay.
So I think what we're looking at right now is
Just getting it off the ground.
getting it
Yes.
as an approved program by the city council.
Great.
And as we talked about, some funding source maybe, that would be a mix kind of thing. However that'll all work, and get it going, get a couple things out there, get some press on it, say here it is, you have problems, this is where it could maybe help. Get that going, and then as we see more, add to it. Because the goal was to have one at the start.
Yeah.
But the staff added, what, 4 or 5 that are in there?
Yep.
Am I right, Mr.
Yeah,
Field?
we did just have
Mr.
that
Schuline?
one. Yeah.
Is that what our intent is for right now, is to just get it going?
Great.
But
I
yeah,
just wanted to make
but-
sure I
but
wasn't
yeah,
going to
as you
miss a
have
vote.
more, you'll want to send it to the staff.
Yep.
And they'll create a package, and we'll all look at it, and then it'll just get added at the right time.
So that's the right answer.
Is that the answer?
Yeah.
Is the right answer?
That was the right answer. Great, thank you.
Anything else?
No,
Okay.
207 LPIs, that's pretty great.
All right.
A fourth of the way there.
Just for a little clarity, even for my understanding, the draft that we're reading, we originally talked about driver feedback devices. Now there's language about speed tables, on-street painting, mini turnarounds. Is it for us to understand that those are measures that are included and will be included, but anything
I think-
extra we talk about as
Oh, yes.
an appendix in the
Right, yeah,
future?
anything, yes. The main goal of where we're at is to get the approved program. And right now, it does have several options that are to be looked at, and that's part of it, to be looked at too. But her point was, I have 4 or 5 in my pocket that I want to talk about. Is this the right time to bring it up? I would say no, because that would just slow down. The main goal of this whole thing is to get it approved.
That's how I understand it as well.
Right.
I just appreciate the fact that there are those 2 or 3 other things beyond the driver feedback devices, and let's hang on to those. So, great, good, thanks, and thank you.
Okay, Captain, do you have anything for us?
They're not. I don't think my mic's working. No, I do not.
Okay, and the reason why we kept Ward 3, Commissioner Russell, is he's one of the ones that has to move, because when they redistrict the whole city, he's now in District 2.
You're crying because I'm there now.
That's the only reason I can get this computer to work.
And so the counselor's office, we went to the counselor's office, and they said he can finish his term, and his term runs out this month. And so city council will be looking for a new person, which will be hard to fill.
Yeah.
But we just want to thank you for everything, and we wanted you to have the last comment. So.
Well, anyway, I just thank y'all for the last 3 years. Has been really neat learning how the process works, and y'all training me up. Sorry I had to get out so early, you know. But anyway, I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity to serve, and we'll look forward to serving the city in another aspect over here in Ward 2, as I'm now a resident of Ward 2. Anyway, thank you very much.
You are going to be busy.
All right, does anybody else have any business with the Traffic and Transportation Commission? Okay, we're adjourned.